I might have been sabotaging myself a little bit before that, just out of the frustration and anger.
But were
You
you
know,
sabotaging your relationship with Robyn?
yeah, I was.
I'm in a major place of mourning, and he's angry.
Destructive of my relationship with Robyn. So I dealt with a lot of anger, and she would get frustrated. My anger was a turnoff.
So you see him imploding?
He tries to.
Yeah. You love her.
Yeah, but I wanted to punish myself.
He tries to. I have to stop him all the time.
Robyn Brown, wife number 4 of Kody Brown, had long positioned herself as a wife who had absolute trust in her husband and remained ignorant of the complicated finances of the family. However, the financial records and court documents presented today show otherwise. For years, fans have watched Robyn portray a faithful, obedient wife, a woman sitting quietly by as the family matriarch made all the decisions. She was presented as the sensitive wife, immersed in raising her kids and keeping the family intact by sheer dedication. But today, an astounding legal war, supported by insider testimony and recently emerged financial data, is on the verge of shattering that well-guarded image. Was it possible that the innocent woman was actually immersed in the very financial transactions now bringing the Brown family to its knees? The content presented is not naivety, but influence, privilege, and selfish profit, disguised by emotional appeals and frequent assertions of trust. This tale is filled with twists, and you won't want to miss a single second of it. If you are prepared to dive into the evidence and theories rocking the Sister Wives universe, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Reality Recap, and click the notification bell so that you'll be in the know about more explosive news first. Let's dive in. In order to understand the full impact of what is occurring, we must go back to the public image Robyn Brown has worked so diligently to establish after more than a decade on television. It is the very basis of her defense. During deposition testimony, secured in part from confidential sources close to the case, Robyn placed herself not as a defendant in a fiscal scandal, but as a victim of circumstance. Her words, reportedly breaking with emotion, painted her as someone entirely disconnected from money matters. "I'm just a wife and a mother," she explained, repeating a phrase fans have heard often. "My whole focus was on my kids and Kody's kids. It was about merging our families, making sure every child felt cared for and secure. That was my job, the finances. That was Kody's job. He was in charge of the family pot. He made those decisions. I trusted my husband. That is what a wife, what a plural wife does. You trust the priesthood holder, the head of the home, to make the right decision for everybody." She spoke of her role in the family dynamic as one of stability emotionally, being the glue during the tumultuous relocation from Las Vegas to Flagstaff. "Those were just always horrible times," she testified. "The other wives were stressed out. There was just stress all around. I thought of myself as the calm one for Kody and the children. My job was to have our home be a calm place, a sanctuary from all that stress outside." Discussing bank accounts or wire transfers, that wasn't my reality. I never had access to the principal accounts. "Kody gave me a grocery budget, money for the kids' needs, just like he did with the others. If I needed anything more, I had to ask. To say I was involved in financial planning, that's just not me. I wouldn't even know how to start." This testimony was crafted to have impact, and it does. It ties directly into the persona fans have seen on the show, and it draws out sympathy. She portrays herself as Kody's vision of the perfect plural wife, loyal, compliant, and uninterested in money, leaving decisions to her husband's judgment. She firmly denies knowing about the very transactions now at the center of this case, dismissing them as complicated transfers left to Kody and perhaps their accountants. But here, the prosecution, acting on behalf of investors by the name Coyote Pass Development Group, started tugging at the loose ends of her well-laid narrative. The case revolves around allegations that the Brown family, through their corporate vehicles, obtained a hefty private loan for developing their Coyote Pass property. The money was supposed to go towards infrastructure, utilities, road grading, and lot preparation for building. But investors claim much of the cash never went into those ventures. Instead, they claim it was spent on personal spending and ultimately led to the default on the loan and stalled all development on the land, leaving investors who had invested in good faith duped. The prosecuting attorney, Miss Davies, a no-nonsense, astute presence, started her cross-examination with a gentle hand. She questioned Robyn about her life prior to involving herself with Kody, her struggles as a lone mother, and how she came to be involved with the Brown family. Robyn was able to restate her love for her children and her vision of building a big, happy family. She appeared to settle into her familiar position as the misunderstood, soft-spoken woman. But then Davies changed direction, her questioning more piercing. "Mrs. Brown, you have testified that you were not involved in family finances. Is that correct?" "Yes, that is correct." "Kody took care of all of that," Robyn said quietly. "And you've sworn that you had no access to the major accounts, that you lived on an allowance handed out by your husband." "Yes, for groceries, children's clothing, things like that. So essentially, you were a silent partner in the family business affairs. If at all, I wouldn't even refer to myself as a partner." Robyn made clear, "I was a wife and a mom. The business aspect wasn't my role. It was the ideal arrangement." Davies stopped, allowing the response to sink in before heading toward a table filled with binders. She reached for one document. "I want to introduce Exhibit A. This is the Nevada Secretary of State Documented Certificate of Organization of Dissecting Entertainment, LLC, filed the 19th of January 2015, setting it in front of Robyn. She asked, "Would you read out the names of the managing members?" Robyn's eyes read over the page. A flash confusion, perhaps annoyance, swept across her face before she regained control. It lists Kody Brown, Meri Brown, Janelle Brown, Christine Brown, and Robyn Brown. "And on the last page, is that your signature verifying yourself as a managing member?" Davies asked, pointing toward the bottom. Robyn paused. "It seems like my own handwriting, yes. But Kody said it was only formalities, something that we all needed to sign in order to keep the family safe for the show. He said it was just legal stuff, just paperwork." Davies echoed, her voice level but filled with significance. "Mrs. Brown, you are a managing member of an LLC and you have a fiduciary responsibility. That means you legally owe it to the company to act in its best interest. It is not just paperwork. It gives you power, control, and legal status. Are you telling me that Kody Brown made you sign a legally binding document creating a corporate entity, and you signed it without understanding what it said or its implications?" "I trusted my husband," said Robyn, her tone stronger now, tinged with defensiveness. "He told me it was in the best interest of the family, so I signed." The other wives signed as well. It was a family business. This was a turning point. According to her own testimony, Robyn was more than merely a wife. She was a business partner in a corporate setting. Even the name itself, Dabzark, has for a long time incited speculation among the fans, who have believed the acronym Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, Ariella, Robyn, and Kody. If that is the case, it is an interesting choice, quietly omitting the other wives and children from the name even though their signatures are on the papers. And in an insider report, the Dabzark C operating agreement, a more elaborate in-house filing, reportedly provided Kody and Robyn shared power that could override the rest of the members on some fiscal issues, particularly big buys and loan requests. This could have been the nuance the rest of the wives never grasped. The wives had signed on to the formation documents thinking it was a family business designed to manage money from the show. But where there is smoke, there is fire, and that fire was hidden in the operating agreement. Miss Davies seemed inclined to head straight there. "A family business," she thoughtfully replied. "Let us discuss how exactly this family business operated. Did Dabzark Entertainment conduct regular board meetings where all 5 managing members went over money and okayed expenses?" "Not so formal meetings, no." Robyn stuttered. "We would discuss things as a family, over dinner, or when we were all in one place. So no meeting minutes, no official vote or resolution records about the finances of the company." "It wasn't that type of company," Robyn insisted, "only for the money for the show." "Just a name on the bank account." "A bank account," Davies echoed, fixing on the word, "an account you were a managing member of. An account that, by the bank's records, was utilized to obtain the very loan from the Coyote Pass development group that has brought us here today. I now show you Exhibit B, the loan application filed with my clients. It is for $250,000 the applicant, Dabzark Entertainment, LLC. And at the bottom are the signatures of the necessary managing members. There are 2. One is Kody Brown. The other is yours. Mrs. Brown, is that your signature?" The air in the room was thick. This wasn't an old formation paper stashed away years before. This was the loan application itself, the exact loan she professed to have no knowledge of. "Mrs. Brown?" Davies asked. "I signed all sorts of things for Kody," Robyn whispered. "He'd come bring me piles of papers and say, 'Honey, you need to sign these for the accountant.' I didn't read every word. I am not an accountant. I am not a lawyer. I am a mom. I was probably doing homework with the kids or fixing supper. I trusted him." But by this point, the "I trusted him" defense was sounding less and less like faith and more like a shield. Davies allowed the response to hang in the air before continuing. "So your testimony is that you co-signed on a $250,000 loan without knowing what it was for?" "I knew it was for the family," Robyn said, her poise fading. "For building Coyote Pass, so we could all build houses and at last be together." Kody had believed in that vision with such passion. "Signing that document was my gesture of support for him, for our future." "His vision for the family," Davies insisted, "and as a loving wife, surely you saw the way the vision was going. Did you notice that more than 2 years since obtaining this loan, no shovel had hit the earth, no utilities, no graded roads? The funds, by all indicators, were not being invested in development. Did that not give you pause?" "Naturally, I was upset," Robyn cried, her voice increasing in volume. It was devastating for Kody. He was fighting the family so hard. It was a difficult time, and then permits, zoning, delays, it was mucked. He said everything was being taken care of, that it just takes time. Now the strategy of the prosecution was revealed. They had already proven that Robyn was not merely a bystander, but an authorized signatory, a managing member. They had linked her hand directly to the loan application itself. Now, they wanted to undermine the last pillar of her defense, her argument that she never knew where the money had been spent, nor profited from it. Prosecutors had subpoenaed for months, not only the Central Sanskrit bank records, but also company credit card charges associated with the firm. A source said, what they found, the source alleged, was a pattern of expenses so clearly personal to Robyn that it contradicted directly her testimony. Going back to her table, Miss Davies picked up a thick binder. "Mrs. Brown, Dabsark Entertainment, LLC, the firm you signed as managing member, had several corporate charge cards, didn't she?" "I think so," Robyn acknowledged. "Yes," Robyn acknowledged softly. "And did you have one of these cards yourself?" "I did have a card for business purposes, for the show, for materials we required for filming," she replied. "Materials you required for filming," Davies echoed, opening the binder. "Let's examine some of those business expenses a bit more closely. Here is an account for the Dabsark Company credit card that ends in 4722, the account belonging to Robyn Brown. The statement is from April 2019. That was a pretty difficult time for the family, wasn't it? Janelle was renting, Christine was renting, Meri was renting, and you were in a big rental house that Kody had to struggle to get. On television, you all confessed that money was unbearably tight. Is that right? It was extremely stressful." Robyn concurred, shaking her head, and yet, Davies went on. "On this very same statement, we have a $753 charge made to a site by the name of Precious Moments Collectors World. Can anyone tell me what type of business expense that was?" The courtroom fell silent. The title of the collection, so closely identified with Robyn in the public eye, hung suspended in the air like a condemnation. Perhaps it was a gift. To one of the children, maybe, Robyn stuttered. A $700 present when you yourself had described yourself as being in a financially tough spot. Davies objected, her tone icy. "Okay, let's go ahead to May 2019. Another allegation, $1,200 to Victorian de Facor Direct. Was that too for the show?" "My house is shot on," Robyn hastened to add. "It has to look attractive. That is what I am paid for." So equipping your own home, the one you and Kody had lived in, was a business expense. It was their home base of operations for filming, Robyn insisted. "Was it?" Davies retorted. "Because my records indicate that at the same time, Christine Brown asked to withdraw money from the family account to assist in equipping her rental house, and was informed that there was no money. Do you recall that?" "I'm not in charge of who gets what," Robyn said, her voice shaking. "Kody decides that. You're twisting things. The foundation was collapsing. The carefully maintained picture of the passive, unaware wife was being chipped away. Charge by charge, date by date, question by question. The prosecution was building a stark dichotomy, while the other wives were hearing that the family was broke, and the Coyote Pass dream had to be put off forever. Money was regularly pouring from the family business into upgrading Robyn Brown's personal life. The loan to construct 4 houses seemed to be a feathering one. The initial round of cross-examination was over, but the harm had already been done. Robyn's credibility was in shreds, and Davies was just getting started. The worst of the evidence, the fragments that connected her spending directly to the bogus loan and her positive participation in the scheme, was yet to be presented. The victimhood narrative was lost. Instead, the image of a calculating partner was beginning to form. As the proceeding went on, the climate of the courtroom had changed entirely. Robyn's public image as an innocent, trusting wife had been broken. The Dabzark formation documents and her signature on the loan application had bound her legally to the company. The credit card receipts bound her to its funds. Now the prosecution's challenge was to demonstrate that her participation was not passive, and her gains were not incidental, that she was willfully involved in the misuse of the investor money. Davies started round 2 by going back to the name in the middle of the case, Mrs. Brown. Let's go back to Dabzark Entertainment LLC. It is a strange name. Is there anything special about it? She asked breezily. Robyn fidgeted in her seat. It was just a name Kody had come up with. He felt it sounded professional. Professional, Davies repeated. Our investigation has uncovered a widely held belief, a theory, that the name is actually an acronym. Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, Ariella, Robyn, and Kody. Is that correct? Robyn flushed. That's just a silly fan theory from the internet. That is not true, Robyn maintained. Is it? Davies countered, her tone biting. Because it does sound like quite a coincidence, doesn't it? That a presumptively random professional-sounding name just so happens to share the same initials as you, your husband, and all of your kids. Yet leave out everyone else. Let's consider, for the sake of argument, that this ridiculous fan theory is correct. That would indicate from the start that company, the one that managed the family's television revenue and took out loans to build Coyote Pass, was simply named after your nuclear family. Doesn't that seem strange for a company supposedly intended to benefit everyone equally? Kody named it. I had nothing to do with it, Robyn echoed, holding to her standard defense. It was just a name, but the seed had been sown. The very name implied exclusivity. A company intended not for the Browns in general, but one particular branch. It was the first stroke in creating a shadow financial world within the family, one that directed benefits toward Robyn and Kody while excluding Meri, Janelle, Christine, and their 13 children. Davies continued, waving before him another set of papers. Let's talk about communication regarding this loan. You also testified to signing the application without reading it, that Kody had delivered it to you while you were preoccupied. I'd like to now present Exhibit C, a chain of emails among you, Kody Brown, and the family's financial advisor in the week leading up to the submission of the loan. The topic line of the initial email says, "Follow up on Dabzark Capital Loan." The advisor explains the terms of the loan, the rate of interest, period of repayment, and covenants stipulating the money must be utilized purely for infrastructure. The email concludes, Kody, Robyn, please look these terms over carefully. If you both approve, just respond with confirmation so we can close. 4 hours have passed and there is a response from your personal email account. It reads, "Looks good to us. Thanks for getting this done." Is that from your email, Mrs. Brown? Robyn sat white-faced, staring at the page. I don't recall sending that email. You don't remember signing off on a $250,000 loan? Davies demanded, her voice heavy with skepticism. Perhaps this next one will remind you. This is from you to Kody, subject line, loan docs. You typed, Kody, did you print the final application documents? I'd like to review them one last time before we sign. Let me know when you have them. Mrs. Brown. That doesn't read like a frazzled wife signing her name over the stove, whipping up dinner. That reads like someone that is actually reading documents prior to signing. Isn't that true? Kody takes care of the details, handling things for her, Robyn replied, her voice breaking. Maybe I did want to see, but he would have told me in a simple way. He shields me from messy things. Shields you, or reports to you, Davies retorted. Because the evidence indicates you weren't merely told, you were a checkpoint along the way. She produced yet another exhibit. This is a sworn affidavit from a former production assistant on your television show. The aide reports that during the loan discussions, they heard Kody having an angry phone conversation. Kody was upset over delays and stated, "I can't proceed until I get Robyn's approval. The entire deal hinges on her. She needs to be okay with the figures." Now, Mrs. Brown, isn't that a man protecting his clueless wife, or does that sound like a business partner who required your sign-off? That is a lie, Robyn exploded. That is just a bitter old employee seeking to cause trouble for our family, whether or not the affidavit did have merit. It supported the prosecution's story. The emails, the signatures, the bank statements, all cast Robyn not as a quiescent witness, but as a woman who insisted on being in the know, who needed to be placated by the figures, and whose nod was the last word for any significant financial transaction. Having set out Robyn's active part in obtaining the loan, Davies turned to the crux of her argument, the manner in which those funds supposedly were spent. She returned to the thick binder of credit card statements and, for the next hour, led the courtroom through a meticulous breakdown of what she framed as the Browns' financial double standard. Let's go back to the Dabzart corporate card, Mrs. Brown. The one in your name. We've already discussed the charges for precious moments, collectibles, and Victorian furnishings. But the pattern doesn't stop there, does it? Davies turned to June 2019. Your daughter Aurora was getting ready to go to college. Here is a $2,500 billing to Apple Inc. for an expensive MacBook Pro. Was that on business? My kids require computers for school, Robyn said weakly. And their lives are on the show. It is all related. I am certain it is, Davies said coldly. But about the same time, did you recall Janelle's son Garrison? He was attempting to scrape together a down payment on a small house. We have Janelle and Kody's text messages. Janelle had asked if the family could give him a little bit of money. Money he offered to pay back with interest. She was flatly told the family was broke and couldn't assist. But Dabzart can spend top of the line for your daughter's laptop. How do you justify that? That was Kody's call. He determines how the children are taken care of, Robyn asserted. Does he? Or does he simply sign off on the things you order? Davies asked before continuing. She looked to August 2019. During that month, the family was fraying at the seams, Christine yearning to return to Utah, Meri withdrawn, Janelle fretting about 5 individual rental homes, sucking the finances dry. And yet, on your Dabzart card, we have jewelry store transactions in excess of $3,000 at Serafina's Fine Jewelry. What was the business purpose there? Those were gifts, Robyn stuttered, birthdays, anniversaries, for which family members? Davies retorted. Because we have the receipts. One was a custom necklace with the initials K and R intertwined, another, diamond earrings, a third, a men's watch. Were those for Janelle, for Meri, or were they personal items for you and Kody? Paid for with company funds at a time you've described as a financial crisis. Robyn sat silent, eyes welling with tears. The strategy was harsh and successful. With every dubious accusation, Davies pitted an instance of another wife's economic struggle, usually accompanied by images the audience already witnessed on the program. The hypocrisy was exposed. There was the $5,000 for custom cabinetry and shelving in Robyn's pantry. The same month, Christine was on the internet, seeking assistance to pay for Isabel's back surgery. Thousands were spent on subscription education and private educators for Robyn's kids, and Janelle's sons labored construction and odd jobs to pay for their own needs. Landscaping companies, patio sets, even an outdoor fire pit upgraded Robyn's rental residence, while Coyote Pass, the land the loan was intended to build upon, sat idle. Then emerged the most explosive of the theories. An insider at the family's old accounting firm speculated that the account for Dabzart was maintained as the primary account of Kody and Robyn, with the majority of the show's earnings. A much smaller family pot account was kept elsewhere, with only minimal transfers into it. On this source's account, when Meri, Janelle, or Christine requested to view financial statements, they were presented with statements only from that paltry account, reinforcing Kody's account that the family was poor. In fact, the source asserted the much larger Danske account, and one filled with show money as well as investor funds, was accessed by nearly all of its money, mostly by Kody and Robyn. Miss Davies' cross-examination seemed to be building squarely on that hypothesis. Miss Brown, what we witness here are not one financial narrative, but two. Davies's voice remained firm. For three of the wives, reality was shortage, sacrifice, and perpetual waiting. For you, it was luxury, upgrades, and individual indulgences. And in the middle of it all is the Dabzark account, an account you handled, an account you approved to borrow a huge amount of money, and an account from which you personally gained. That is not the action of a passive wife who was kept in the dark. That is the act of an active financial partner. No, whispered Robyn, streaming tears down her cheeks. I love my family. I would never hurt my sister wives or their children. Kody said it was all right. He said these were okayed family expenditures. He informed you it was acceptable to purchase jewelry and collectibles while Christine's daughter awaited surgery. Davies rebutted. He informed you it was a company expense to furnish your house while Janelle was getting ready to live in an RV because she couldn't afford rent. Is that leadership, Miss Brown? Or is that a husband spoiling his pet wife through a company you both owned? The questions cut deep, not only into the family's money, but into its long-suspected pecking order. This wasn't merely mismanagement on trial. It was inequality, favoritism, and betrayal exposed. Stepping forward in her final statement, Davies' tone was soft but audible throughout the courtroom. Miss Brown, you sat here and swore before God that you were nothing more than a wife and a mother. You said you were a trusting wife and knew little of the family's finances. You positioned yourself as an innocent bystander, a victim of fate. But the facts paint a different picture. The evidence demonstrates that you were a managing member of the family's core corporation. The evidence demonstrates your signature and your email in authorizing a $250,000 loan. The evidence demonstrates years of expenditures that enriched your family when the other wives were led to believe the family was in financial trouble. So I'll ask you one more question. Isn't the truth, Miss Brown, that you weren't a passive wife at all? A smile, isn't it true that you were Kody Brown's equal partner in the financial dismantling of the very family you professed to protect? The silence which followed was thick. The question hung there like a knockout punch to the narrative Robyn had held on to for so long. Whether or not the lawsuit ever went anywhere, her credibility already appeared broken. The woman who long ago inquired, "Why am I the family scapegoat?" possibly now has her answer. Not from the public, but from a court of law hidden under records that recounted a version of events she could no longer dictate. The mask had slipped, and what was left was a portrait more nuanced and far more guilty than anyone had ever conceived.